Changes to absentee ballot rules, the lawsuit hoping to keep Donald Trump off Wisconsin's primary ballot. And will there be compromise in Madison? CBS 58's Emily Fannin, WIS Politics editor J.R. Ross discuss in tonight's Capital Connection.
We're going to start this week's show looking into a lot of election news that happened this week to kick off 2024. First, we're going to start with a Dane County judge issued a ruling that has to deal with removing some requirements when it comes to witnesses who fill out information on absentee ballots. So this judge issued a pair of rulings that would basically toss out some requirements, such as when a witness has to fill out their address information, if they leave out their street name or their zip code. And we've learned in this ruling, too, that clerks will now have to accept those absentee ballots if they don't have a witness's zip code. So, Jared, looking at this ruling comes as there has been a series, and I mean a lot of changes to how absentee voting works here in the state ever since the 2020 election. Going forward, I guess, do you see this as another way to confuse voters, or where does this case even go from here?
Well, there are a couple issues. One, there's no bright line on what the minimum standard is for a witness address in Wisconsin absentee ballot. And two, we had a ruling from a judge in the fall of 2022 saying that clerks can't cure an absentee ballot if you have the witnesses missing a zip code or a municipality. But if you don't have to have those things, that undercuts that ruling, right? So what we need is clarity from the state Supreme Court about what is the standard. So go back, state law does not define address when it comes to voting absentee. When you get your ballot as absentee voter, you have your name, your address on there, pretty much pre-printed most of the time. It's the witness address, okay? So some witnesses, for example, their spouses, they put ditto or same on their address because it's the same address as the person they're witnessing their spouse. That was being thrown out by some clerks. This judge is saying, look, you can't throw that out. You can't throw it out for missing a zip code. But again, what do you have to have? What's that minimum standard? The Elections Commission said it should be your street number, street name, municipality. Okay, but that was guidance. Guidance not carried away to state law. We could use a ruling from the state Supreme Court to clarify what that minimum standard is going forward.
Speaking of absentee ballots, this week a bipartisan commission voted to select which candidates will appear on Wisconsin's primary ballot. That will be on April 2nd. They selected 6 Republican candidates, including former President Donald Trump. You can see all the candidates that you'll see right here on your screen. And this portion of this meeting kind of is a little bit significant this week that they met, JR, given that we officially have learned that Kirk Bangstad, the Minocqua Brewing Company owner, has officially filed a lawsuit seeking to bar former President Donald Trump from running again. Now, his argument is the same one that we've seen in a series of states that argues a provision in the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the Insurrection Clause, disqualifies Trump from running again. We've seen successful efforts in Colorado and Maine. Trump's team is appealing both of those decisions, likely going to be decided by the U.S. Supreme Court. So the question here is the timeline too, JR. As we know, the nation's high court is really facing a lot of mounting pressure right now to decide whether Trump is qualified or not, and also given the fact that in the next few weeks we are going to have some of the first primary contests underway in the 2024 season.
So, look, I don't want to diminish any state court in Wisconsin, right? But I'm almost not that interested in what the Dane County Circuit Court may have to say about whether Trump should be in the ballot, or even the state Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court have ultimate authority. We've seen multiple states who have had issues arise. We've seen them put on the ballot in some states, not in Maine and Colorado. We've also seen another gentleman who's running for president as a Republican who's filed, I think, 24 federal lawsuits trying to knock Trump off. None of them been successful so far. So look, we need clarity from the U.S. Supreme Court. What is the standard? Oh, by the way, worthwhile noting with the ballot, only Biden's the only Democrat going to be in the ballot in Wisconsin this spring. Now, people like Dean Phillips, the congressman from Minnesota, he's running. He's not really being welcomed with open arms by Democrats, the establishment at least, but he's not going to be in the ballot. Now there's Marianne Williamson, who's on the ballot, along with Dean in places like South Carolina and New Hampshire. It's kind of a one-day knock from Republicans, say, why are you protecting Joe Biden from the challenge? Democrats, though, are kind of go, look, these guys don't matter. They're not going to be around even in April by the time our ballot, our primary comes around. So you kind of get why they did it.
And looking ahead to next week, Jer, both of you and I and several reporters sat down with the governor this week to talk about looking ahead to the next legislative session. And one thing we want to highlight is tax cuts. As we know, the governor has rejected a series of proposals brought forth by Republicans. But as we've talked on the show, we know Republicans sometime this month are planning to present a plan that would cut taxes on retirement income. I spoke to the governor about that. He said as long as it's a clean bill, he would likely support that. But we know Republicans like to sneak other of their priorities in some of these things.
Well, clean's in the eye of the beholder. So what do they add into that bill, if anything, besides that retirement? Look, the governor and Republican leaders actually compromised on big things this session so far. Shared revenue, Brewer's bill, a sales tax for Milwaukee County and City to fix the pension problem. Those things I don't think we would have envisioned 3 or 4 years ago. Paint me skeptical about big compromises in January, February, March, because we have a narrow window for them to be in session. There's an election coming up in November. There's some pressure on to get out of here and go on the campaign trail. So we'll see. Maybe they reach a deal, maybe, but I'll believe it when I see it.
All right, sounds good. That will do it for this week. Thanks so much for joining us.